What's up, guys? I'm Tyler, and this is the Glory UGA podcast brought to you by our great friends at MyBookie. And guys, I am excited about today's episode. I'm always excited to talk Georgia football because why wouldn't you be when you are as invested as you and I are, and when you bleed red and black the way that you and I do? Talking Georgia football is about as good as it gets. So I'm always excited. However, today, that excitement level is taken up a notch or two because today is the day that I am going to begin rolling out my spring practice primary series. We do this every single year. Those of you who have been with us for the last 10 years on the audio side of the podcast, you know how we do this. But for those of you who are new here on YouTube, every single year, right around this time of year, I start rolling out a preview for every single position unit on Georgia's football team ahead of spring practice. We take a look at the big picture outlook at each position, but spend a lot of time diving into the position battles, the contenders, the sleepers, all that stuff. So yeah, I'm excited about it, guys. Number one, I'm excited to bring this content finally here to you guys on YouTube as we've been rolling out this channel over the past 6-ish months or so. And really, I'm just excited to talk some legit hardcore Georgia football. We've kind of been in the doldrums here of the college football offseason for the past couple weeks. It's been hard to find hardcore Georgia football content to bring to you guys, but now we've got no problems, and we are going to get you guys ready for Georgia spring practice, which is set to kick off the week of March 10th when the team returns from spring break. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's dive into the very first edition of our spring practice primer episodes. And we're going to open with the position I think you have to open with because as far as I'm concerned, it is the single most important position on any football team, including this Georgia football team. And that, of course, has to be the quarterback position. And if you look at the big picture outlook at this position going into spring practice, currently we have 4 scholarship quarterbacks on our roster. We've got Gunnar Stockton, which of course everyone knows about. You got redshirt freshman Ryan Puglisi, who I am very interested to see how far this guy has progressed during spring practice. And you got the 2 incoming freshmen, a part of Georgia's second-ranked 2025 recruiting class, Ryan Montgomery, the 4-star from Ohio. And you've got a local kid, kind of local kid, at least for the last year, Hezekiah Millender. Has he moved into Athens to play at Clark Central, which is about a mile and a half down the road from me. So I've seen this guy play a lot of football, pretty much every game that he played this past year. Moved in from Arizona, was a 3-star prospect, was committed to Boise State for a while, and we came in late in December and were able to flip him, trying to get a 4th quarterback on the roster. And I think he's the perfect guy to get as your 4th quarterback. He's a guy that he's not ready right now, and Hezi understands that. He knows that he's a developmental guy, but the skill set is fascinating. He's an incredibly talented athlete, really, really good athlete, can do a lot with his legs, really strong arm, but certainly has to learn how to rein that arm in, harness it, and just learn the nuances of playing the quarterback position. But give him a couple years, and all bets might be off for Hezi here in Athens. And Ryan Montgomery, really talented guy in his own right. Unfortunately, he tore his knee up early on in his senior campaign in high school, so he's still recovering from a knee injury. So while we do have 4 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster going to spring practice, it's really a 2-horse race. It's Gunnar Stockton and it's Ryan Puglisi. Now, I know when I told you guys, we're going to open with the quarterback position as the first position we're going to break down with our spring practice primer, a lot of you probably like, well, dude, why? Like, it's Gunnar's job. I think there's kind of a general assumption among most Georgia fans out there, certainly not everybody, but most Georgia fans are just kind of assuming, based on the way last season ended with Gunnar coming in and leading us to that comeback win in the SEC Championship game over Texas, and of course starting that game against Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, which obviously we didn't win. That sucks, but we didn't lose that game because of Gunnar. He played admirably in that spot, a tough spot for him to play there. So I think the assumption is, among most Georgia fans, that he is going to be the guy. And you might well be right. You very well might be right if you were one of those people that is making that assumption. However, I'm here to tell you today that this quarterback battle, in my estimation, is more open than I think a lot of people in the Georgia fan base think right now going into spring practice. And this is where I want to pause. Time out here, okay? I want to pause right here because when I say things like that, which to me, that's not criticism of Gunnar Stockton, but when I say anything that's outside of like glowing recommendations of Gunnar Stockton, I got people coming for me. So when I say that I think this job is more open this spring, this offseason, than maybe a lot of people think it is, that doesn't mean that I think Gunnar Stockton sucks. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that I think Gunnar Stockton is a garbage quarterback. It doesn't mean that I don't think Gunnar Stockton can be a really good, effective quarterback for Georgia. It doesn't mean any of that. All I'm saying is, while Gunnar Stockton is a good player, a good quarterback, certainly I think we've seen that from him, that he can get the job done. I'm just saying don't sleep on Ryan Puglisi because this dude is extraordinarily gifted. He's got the physical tools. So let's look at these two guys in comparison. And let's start with Gunnar. What does Gunnar bring to the table? Well, number one, the one thing that he brings to the table that Ryan Puglisi quite simply cannot match is the experience. It's not so much the experience on the field, which he certainly does have an edge over Puglisi. Puglisi essentially not played at all at Georgia. He's only been here for a year, but Gunnar's been in the system for 3 years now. And yeah, the first years didn't do much, saw some spot duty late in games at times as a sophomore in 2023. Saw a little bit more extended time in the Orange Bowl against Florida State when we just wiped them out, but really didn't see much, really any meaningful time whatsoever. That changed this year. Is really not much action at all prior to the SEC championship game, but we know he comes in the second half, starts the second half after Carson goes down with injury and leads this comeback win, sparks the team rallies around him, and it was a sight to behold, man. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch there inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We know he gets the start in a big spot in a college football playoff game quarterfinal against Notre Dame. Again, thought he played well. Perfect? No. Absolutely not. Didn't play perfect in the SEC title game, but played well enough for us to come back and win that football game. But he does have the experience. He has, and you would think more knowledge of the system based on how long he's been here, but he certainly has the experience of the system, has more experience on the field than Ryan Puglisi has. And again, that's something Puglisi just simply cannot match. One thing that we also don't know about Puglisi right now are the leadership aspects of playing that position. Gunnar, I think we have a pretty good feel for that. Even though he again, hasn't played a ton on the field, just to see the way the team responded to him in the second half, the way he sparked the team, the way the team celebrated and rallied around him after the game and were just glowing with their praise of Gunnar Stockton. And everything they were saying leading up to the Sugar Bowl, you saw the leadership qualities. And Gunnar's not a vociferous guy. He's not a dude that's going to go out there and be yelling at folks. That's just not his personality. He's more of a Brock Bowers, like lead by example kind of guy. And that's what you heard his teammates say. It's like all this dude does, he hasn't had many opportunities here. And it's frustrating for a guy who was a really highly rated recruit coming out of high school and broke all these records for passing yardage and passing touchdowns and total yardage and whatever other record he broke in Georgia high school history. And he has to come in and humble himself and sit for a couple years and just kind of be an afterthought. But what he did during that time is he just went to work, man. He never complained. He was a great teammate, did everything that he was asked to do, and just was grinding, man, was just getting better. And the team sees that. They respect that, and that's why you see them rally around him and be excited for him when he gets his opportunity in the SEC championship game. So we know that Gunnar has that element, and Puglisi, I can't say he doesn't. We just don't know for sure. So there's an edge right now, at least based off what we know, that Gunnar might have coming into this battle during spring practice. In terms of playing on the field, Gunnar, we know, brings a level of athleticism to the quarterback position that we just simply didn't have under Carson Beck. Now, we also have to understand that while Gunnar is more athletic than Carson Beck, what exactly is that saying? He's certainly not an explosive athlete at the quarterback position, not a guy that's going to give you what, I don't know, like Jalen Milroe gave Alabama for a couple years. He's not that kind of guy. But what he can do is give us the ability to run some like legitimate design QB run game stuff, which can hold the defenses accountable, hold them honest, and really create more space for our running backs and also allow us to do some things to neutralize teams trying to get extra guys in the box, take back numbers advantages, all those things. Gunnar is a good enough athlete to allow us to do that, to make defenses at least respect his ability to run. We know he brings that. I also think with that athleticism, he throws really well outside the pocket. When you move the pocket, you get him on the run, he again, not much of a sample size of playing time, but what we've seen from him when given opportunities to do that, the guy excels at that. I mean, the laser beam he threw to Lawson Lucky in the SEC championship game on the sideline where, yes, Lawson made a ridiculous tightrope walking catch. Awesome. But that was a laser beam by Gunnar Stockton on the run. So he does do that well, and he throws the deep ball very well with a great deal of accuracy. I would say, again, I know, small sample size, with much more accuracy than we saw Carson Beck throw the deep ball at any point in his career. That was always something that kind of gave Carson some issues. Cleaned up on a little bit this past year, but it was a major issue for him. One of his biggest deficiencies going back to 2023, and what we've seen from Gunnar in that small sample size is he throws that deep ball very well. I also think he does a good job diagnosing pressure when teams are bringing pressure, when they're bringing the blitz. And if you look at his Pro Football Focus numbers, it kind of bears that out. And look, guys, Pro Football Focus, take it with a grain of salt. I put much more credence into their quantitative data as opposed to their qualitative stuff, like their actual grades. The qualitative, the grading that they do, it's not super transparent, guys. So I don't know exactly what goes in their grading. So just take that with a grain of salt. But when Gunnar was blitzed last year, he completed 71% of his passes. What that tells me is that when he can see them, when they have to bring pressure, he does a good job, been in the system for a while, at diagnosing where that pressure is coming from, and he knows where to go with the football. He knows where his outlets are. He knows where his hot route is. He understands those things, gets the ball out of his hands, and does a really good job with that. However, there are some things that Gunnar Stockton struggles with, all right? And this is where, I don't know how much to put on Gunnar, saying that these are things that he just is not ever going to be he's not ever going to be able to do well. Because he basically set for almost 3 years of his football career. Between the time he graduated high school and got the start against Notre Dame, he basically went almost 3 years without playing a meaningful snap of football. But one of the things that we saw, certainly against Notre Dame, and I think also at times in that game against Texas, was a lack of feel, a lack of awareness in the pocket. And if you look at his numbers, go back again to Pro Football Focus, when he was pressured last year, he only completed 52.4% of his passes with a 43.9 grade. Qualitative stuff, again, do what you want with it, but they're the numbers, right? So against the blitz, he completed 71% of his passes, but when he was pressured, only 52.4%. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me, again, when he can see where the pressure's coming from pre-snap, when he can diagnose it, he knows where to go with the football. That's the experience in the system. He's pretty accurate in those situations as well. But when he gets pressured, oftentimes when they are not bringing extra guys, not bringing extra bodies, not actually blitzing, but they're just able to get pressure with a four-man rush, doing some twists, some stunts, some games up front, he doesn't have a great feel for where that pressure is coming from. And we saw that up close and personal in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in the Sugar Bowl. If you were there, you saw right there in the stadium. That sack fumble right before halftime was I was sitting in the lower level, right there where it happened. I sat there and saw it coming. I'm like, Gunnar, it's coming. Dude had no freaking clue it's coming. Now, yeah, should Monroe Freeling do a better job of picking up the pressure there? Of course, absolutely. Can't all be on Gunnar. But the quarterback also has to have a feel for that, some awareness, a clock ticking in his head, right? You got to understand how much time you have. And that is something he struggled with in that, 6 quarters that he played at the end of last season. Now, the question I have about that is, all right, is that just an issue that Gunnar's always going to have? It's just something that's inherent in Gunnar Stockton's ability to play the quarterback position. He's always going to struggle with the feel and the pocket awareness and those kind of things. Or is that more of a function of, like I said, him essentially going 3 years without playing meaningful snaps in real live games, and certainly at this level with the type of speed you'll be facing with a team like Notre Dame, who's a playoff caliber team? Is it that? And now with the opportunity to get more reps, whether it's in spring practice or fall camp throughout the offseason, getting all those reps that he wasn't getting over the past couple years, will his ability to feel that pressure, will that improve? Will his awareness improve in the pocket? That's something I'm going to be watching very closely during the spring. We get to G-Day, obviously. But I think that's a big question right now, because if there is one thing I'd point to right now and say, where does Gunnar struggle? It's that. It's the feel in the pocket. It's honestly, frankly, it scares me to death. It scares me that there were a couple times against Texas, against Notre Dame, you saw it as well. And look, I don't want to put that all on Gunnar. The line's got to help him out, but you got to feel that. You got to get the ball out of your hands. You got to escape the pocket, especially when you have a little bit of athleticism the way that Gunnar has. So those are some questions that I have there with Gunnar Stockton. Now, another thing he does really well is he throws off play action very well. He completed 83% of his passes off of play action, which is another thing. So if Gunnar does win the job, I think our recipe for success under him will look very similar to what we saw back in 2021 with Stetson Bennett taking over, right? Where Stetson, you guys remember, Stetson 2021 was good, but he wasn't what Stetson was in 2022. Those are two very different quarterbacks. Our formula with Stetson in 2021 was to run the football, play action off of that, use Stetson's legs, those kind of things. I think that's more the formula we would go back to, but the question I have with that is, like, do we have the offensive line right now? I think we have some talented guys that are going to be fighting for jobs. We'll get to that later on in one of our other episodes of our Spring Practice Primer series. But there's some unknowns there. We're replacing multiple stars on the offensive line, so we'll see there. Do we have the backfield depth with Trevor Etienne moving on? I would have felt much more comfortable if Etienne was back. I love Nate Frazier. Think he absolutely can be a feature back, but what's going on behind him? You have the Robinsons coming back from injury. What version of them are we going to see? Are the young guys ready to step up? Is Bo Walker coming in as a freshman? Is he ready to give us some snaps? Chauncey Bowens, is he ready to take another step this year? So I just don't know if we have a 1-2 punch like we had with Zamir White and James Cook. I don't know, but he does throw well off play action. I think he will enhance our run game. I thought we should have run it more. And I thought our run game should have been more diverse in the lead up to the Sugar Bowl. Maybe we just didn't have enough time. I don't know. I felt it was enough time, but that's a conversation for another day. But my general take on Gunnar Stockton is this. And those of you who have been watching the podcast and been listening to me for a long time, you kind of know where I'm going with this. But I think Gunnar's a good quarterback. I've had some serious questions in the offseason. I had the ability to the chance to go watch practice during fall camp, and one of my biggest takeaways coming out of that practice, first off, it was Nate Frazier, stud, dude, and then second off, it was, man, I got worries about Gunnar. Because in that one isolated setting, man, it was not a pretty look. I mean, I'm talking like the accuracy was he was erratic, man. Throwing balls like 10 yards over receivers' heads, making really, really questionable decisions with the football. And so I walked out of there concerned because, we thought at the time, okay, Carson's moving on this year. He'll be a draft pick. And then Gunnar's like, he's going to be the guy, right? Like, that's kind of what it was setting up to be. And so I was like, all right, I feel good about 2023 as long as Carson doesn't get hurt. Or 2024, as long as Carson doesn't get hurt. But 2025, I don't know, man. I don't know. I had some serious questions. Now, and I readily admitted that was one practice, one setting. That's all I got to see there. So how much stock should I put in that? I don't know. But I had questions. But now, after seeing Gunnar play those 6 quarters in the SEC Championship game in the Sugar Bowl, I feel a lot better about Gunnar's ability to be the quarterback of this football team in 2025 than I did going into it. He gave me some reasons to be encouraged that I laid out for you guys. I do feel better about that possibility. And what I would say about Gunnar is that I've seen enough now to believe that with Gunnar, if Gunnar does end up winning this job and being the guy in 2025, that he has a very high floor as our quarterback, especially with the talent around him. I don't think it's going to be a situation where we're just going to face plant offensively, where it's going to be a disaster like it was for, Kentucky last year. I mean, Kentucky guys, I know they completely face planted last year as a team, but they had some talent on that roster. They had 2 dudes at receiver, Barry and Brown and Dane Key, who were highly sought after in the transfer portal. They had some dudes on the defensive side of the ball. You got Deion Walker. That dude's a stud, man. They had some players, but they didn't have the quarterback. It was a disaster at the quarterback position. And I don't relish saying that because I don't want to rip on Brock Vandagriff. He's a good dude, but I mean, that was ugly from the quarterback position. They just could never figure it out there, and their team as a whole suffered because of it. I don't see that happening at Georgia with Gunnar Stockton. I think he's shown me enough that he's competent enough with the reason I laid out that his floor is pretty high. Our floor as an offense with Gunnar is pretty high. My question, though, and this is what I still don't know because I don't think we've seen enough to really know, is what is Gunnar's ceiling as a quarterback and what is Georgia's offensive ceiling under Gunnar Stockton? Is Gunnar a type of quarterback that's going to be a bona fide elite dude at the college ball level? Is he going to be a bona fide first-round draft pick? And you don't have to be a first-round draft pick to be an elite college quarterback. We saw that with Stetson Bennett. But what is that ceiling? That's the question that I have. Is Gunnar Stockton the kind of quarterback that when you're playing an elite football team and they're about to take away the run game, that you can give him the ball 40 times, have him drop back 40 times and throw for 350 plus and win you a football game? Is Gunnar that kind of guy? I don't know. I know at the high school level he was, right? But this is a different animal, right? It's high school, college. Also, like, no offense to Rabun County, it was 2A football. He still went out and did it, and it obviously was a highly recruited guy, and we were fortunate to be able to land him. But how much does that translate to this level against the type of teams that you're going to have to beat to win national titles? That's my question with Gunnar, and that is where Ryan Puglisi comes in. And that's why I told you guys that I do think that this battle is more open than I think maybe the average Georgia fan thinks it is, because I am of the opinion that from a skill set standpoint, a physical tool standpoint, Ryan Puglisi has superior physical tools to Gunnar Stockton. even his size. So Puglisi's 6'3", 215-ish, right around there. And Gunner's like 6'1", 210, maybe 6'1", 215, something around there, right? Big enough, right? He can get the job. He's not like Stetson Bennett small. But if you're looking at athleticism, while Gunner is a good athlete, good enough athlete, Puglisi's a better athlete. Is Puglisi a Jalen Milroe type guy at quarterback? No, he's not either. But what I've seen from him at the college level, or at the high school level, is that he is a better overall athlete than Gunner Stockton. Now, the issue here with trying to project forward with Puglisi is that we've essentially seen nothing from him at the college level. G-Day, he was banged up. He was banged up in spring practice. When I was at practice in fall camp, he was kind of banged up. So he missed some of that developmental time. We haven't really seen him on the field. We don't really know. So I'm operating off of what I saw from him at the high school level, what you hear people that I trust say about him, what you hear his coaches say about him, all those kind of things. And I can tell you from the film you watch, you go back and watch his film, the dude is an athlete. And I do believe he's got a notch, a bit of athleticism, I would say, is a notch above what Gunner Stockton brings to the table. So there's that. I also think he clearly has a better arm. And no, that's not me saying that Gunner Stockton has a noodle arm. It's not what I'm saying. He has a plenty strong enough arm. It's just not as live as Ryan Puglisi's arm. It's just not. So Gunner's not as big. Gunner's not quite as athletic. And he doesn't have the arm that Puglisi has. So when I say physical tools, that's where Puglisi has the edge. That's where he has the edge. Gunner has the edge in experience. Gunner has the edge in at least leadership that we can verify, right? Now, everything you hear about Puglisi is he's made of the right stuff. He was a dude that knew he had to come in and work hard and grind and develop, and he knew he had things to clean up on, all those things. Work ethic, you hear all the right things said about this guy. Leadership, all those things, but you just kind of need to see it in some capacity. We just haven't had a chance to see it. With Gunner, we have had that opportunity, and we've seen him show up in a big way as a leader. But from a physical skill standpoint, I still say Puglisi is a superior player in that regard, and that's why the window is open. But for Puglisi to legitimately have a chance to win this job, I think he's got to do two things. Number one, he is going to have to show beyond a shadow of a doubt that his ceiling, and by extension, the ceiling of the Georgia offense as a whole under him, is higher than that of Gunner Stockton. It can't be even, guys. It can't even be like slightly more. Because if that's the case, if it's that close, I believe that we're going to default to Gunner Stockton because of the reasons I laid out. Because he does have the experience. He does have the leadership, been in the system, all those things. I think Kirby would give him the first crack at it if all things are relatively equal. However, if Puglisi can come out and just ball out this spring and then ball out throughout the offseason into fall camp and just show like, no, dude, like my ceiling is here, Gunner's is here, that's when all bets are off. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I know Kirby loves Gunner Stockton. I love Gunner Stockton. I'm rooting for Gunner, by the way. I like Puglisi too, but Gunner's a Georgia kid, and he's gone about it the right way, done everything that he's been asked to do. Could have transferred out, hasn't transferred out. You'd love to see the team rally around him the way that they did. I don't know him, but the people that I do know around here in Athens, around the program that know him, have never had anything other than glowing things to say about the kid. So I'm rooting for him, man. I really want good things to happen for Gunner Stockton. But my position has always been, as much as I like Gunner and want good things to happen for him, I'm a Georgia guy. All right, that's who I am. And I ultimately want what's best for Georgia. And Kirby Smart's the same way, guys. The dude wants to win. As much as I want to win, as much as you want to win, Kirby wants to win more, especially with the way last season ended, the sour taste in his mouth. You know this guy wants to win. So I do believe that if Puglisi shows, hey, Kirby, like I'm here, Gunner's here, from a physical skill set standpoint, I think he's got a shot to win that job. So number one, he's got to show that. If he doesn't show that, he's got zero chance. But I don't think that alone is enough for Puglisi to win the job. I think, yes, he's got to show that he's head and shoulders above, there's physically more gifted than Gunner, but he's also got to show the coaches that they can trust him. When you play that position and you're as inexperienced as Ryan Puglisi is, and as raw as he kind of was coming out of high school, you've got to earn the coach's trust, because that's where Gunner's experience comes into play, right? That's why I say, like, if things are like kind of level, even if Puglisi's like if he shows he's slightly more physically gifted than Gunner, they're going to default to Gunner because they feel like they can trust him more right now with his experience in the system. But if Puglisi can show that, A, I have a superior ceiling, and then B, I can minimize the mistakes, and I can kind of neutralize Gunner's experiential edge, and I'm the kind of guy that you can actually trust out there, that's when he's really got a shot to take this job. Now, the reality is, I don't think anyone's going to outright win this job during spring practice. This is a job that I fully anticipate a battle that will carry over into fall camp. If Gunnar just straight up wins the job and just balls out and shows that he is that elite guy, great, awesome. But I do think that I think highly enough of Puglisi to think that this battle is going to carry on into fall camp. I don't think we're gonna have a starter named coming out of spring practice. I would be frankly shocked if we did. But if you put a gun to my head right now, because I know I'm gonna get the question, who do I project to win that job ultimately? Well, we got a lot of offseason. Let's talk about that. And we got a lot of spring practice to watch. I'm going to be able to go to a couple practices. I'm going to be going to the coaches clinic. So I'll be able to take in 2 practices there. Obviously, we'll be able to watch G-Day. So I want to see Puglisi out there on the field getting reps for the number 1 offense, which I do think that he will get. To like really firmly tell you, I think this is how it's going to play out. But if I had to project right now, and it's sitting here right now, it's February 19th, I would project Gunnar right now, if you put a gun to my head and made me pick, because, again, experience, we have seen him do some really good things. I am more encouraged about his ability to lead this team coming out of the Sugar Bowl than I was coming into it. So I do think that Gunnar would be he should be the odds-on favorite, right? If you had to bet, if you're a betting man, you'd bet on Gunnar Stockton. But I also don't think it'd be crazy to take a flyer on a little money line bet on Ryan Puglisi to pull that job out. It wouldn't shock me, man, because again, skill set, he's got it. It's just a matter of how much higher is his ceiling than Gunnar Stockton. Like, how much separation can he prove to the coaching staff, and then how much can they trust him with the reps that he's able to get with the number 1 offense, number 2 offense, with whatever unit that he's working with. That's the question. So it'll be fascinating to watch, man. We have I think a legit quarterback battle on our hands here, which I know not every Georgia fan thinks is a real thing, but I do think this is going to be a legitimate battle, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. But all right, guys, that's it for the first edition of our 2025 Spring Practice Primary Series. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you are a diehard Georgia fan, which if you're watching this episode, you probably are, go ahead, guys, subscribe to this channel right now. You don't want to miss any more of these. You want to get every episode uploaded directly to your feed. Don't want you to miss any of that content, so subscribe right now, like, comment, all those things. We greatly appreciate any and all help, guys, as we continue to try to grow this YouTube channel. And, of course, make sure to check out the Glory UGA podcast on the audio side of things, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast. We have a ton more content that is exclusive to the audio side of things. We're talking some Georgia baseball, Georgia basketball, always talking Georgia football. So a ton of stuff that you guys will enjoy if you are a diehard Georgia fan. But thank you guys for being here. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!